From the living room to the Senate floor, from first responders to technology innovators. Different roles, different stories, but one goal: to meet the need for crisis care and overcome the obstacles together. So join in. The Crisis Jam is starting now.
Welcome to episode 236. I'm David Covington. I'm your host for today's Crisis Jam. As we barrel into season 6, we've got some exciting announcements today and new partners that we'll be sharing. But today's special feature is a fireside chat with Dr. Thomas Joyner. My career was upended by this 7.0 Richter scale earthquake, which was the impact of his book, Why People Die by Suicide and the Interpersonal Model of Suicide. And we've heard from others already today who've been impacted similarly by his work. So we're looking forward to Rachel Havekost, who's been a partner here at Crisis Jam and in Crisis Now 3 in Amsterdam, will be leading that discussion. If you were in the backstage pass, we had intended to get to this sound check, but for all of you, join in the chat, drop a comment in, let us know where you're from, and also tell us what's one word that describes your work in crisis care right now. What word would describe your work in crisis care as we're 3 years in and beginning to pivot from that 988 foundation to the tools of mobile crisis and facilities and follow-up that take us to that next level? Talk.crisisnow.com for 5 seasons has been your go-to spot, but that's all changing today. With season 6, we've got a brand new website, crisisjam.com and crisisjam.shop, that are the place where you'll go to register, to join the conversation, to sign up for the newsletter, or to watch. If you're not on Zoom, we've had some SAMHSA or other government employees who couldn't get on our Zoom account because of government Zoom. And we opened up the opportunity for the YouTube live stream. And we're finding a number of people also join us there. You can see what's been on the Crisis Jam in recent weeks. The Battle of the Bills with Senator Tina Orwell and Rep. Steve Ellison was a spectacular start. What an incredible body of work that these two states have been doing, led by these two amazing champions. And we're hoping to bring them back for a fuller 45-minute or an hour version of that at Crisis Now 4 in Washington, D.C. next July. So amazing work. But crisisjam.com is the website as you go forward, as you're looking to connect with this learning community that is the Crisis Jam. We also have the 5 Lanes, One Road to Recovery YouTube channel. And either way, you're going to get to all of the content. Over 200 episodes of the 236 are available on YouTube. We didn't start videoing them until about a year in. But today I want to start with a really exciting announcement. SAMHSA has been an amazing funder and sponsor of the Crisis Jam over the last 3 years through a contract with NASHBID. But that has ended, and we're into a new step in our journey. And Dr. Miriam Delphin-Rittman and Advocates for Human Potential are joining us as our headliner, as our rock star leading sponsor supporting season 6. Miriam, it seems like yesterday that you launched 988 in July of 2022, back in season 2. So, Miriam, welcome. And tell us about your hopes and dreams and thoughts for working together this coming year.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on. And I am just so excited to be able to, through AHP and the AHP team support, the Crisis Jam and RI and NASHBID. This is just such an important space. So really thrilled that in my new role as Vice President for the Center for Training, TA, and Consultation at Advocates for Human Potential, that we're able to sort of lend this support. For those of you who don't know, AHP is a consulting organization. We do work with federal, state, local organizations around all things behavioral health, including program and grant management, funds management, behavioral health related training, TA consultation. And so I'm just so excited about this partnership and HP being able to support the Crisis Jam. As you've heard, you all are just totally in the zone. Over 230 episodes, and just such a great space for being able to come together and share and learn. 50 states participating, and all working together around ensuring that when people are struggling, they have someone to call, someone to respond, and ultimately a safe place to go. And so real quick, I just want to, I'd be remiss. I just have to add some kudos in there because this has been such a valuable space. And just it's been wonderful to see the amazing momentum around the Crisis Jam. And so I have to say kudos, to you, David and Brian, as well as the NAMI, Vibrant, Behavioral Health Link, of course, the amazing SAMHSA team, James and John, so many others. And then everybody that joins weekly, that is day in and day out doing work at the crisis call centers across the country, and so many other partners. So HP is just really thrilled to be able to lean in, to be part of this learning community where we're sort of co-creating and learning together, and continuing to sort of support in evolving this important work. Well, another thing I'd like to share that I'm really excited about is that one thing we talked about is in addition to sort of providing the support, offering some maybe support around workforce. So thinking about maybe a workforce corner where we add sort of brief sort of snippets or brief sort of updates or information related to the behavioral health workforce that may be important. At HP, we do quite a bit of work in this space through this group we call the WIL, the Workforce Innovation Lab. And so I'd be thrilled to be able to share some of that work and innovation that's happening there with all of you. But I'll be brief. Back over to you, David. I just wanted to say again, so thrilled to be here. Kudos to everyone for the amazing work that you guys have continued to do, really day in and day out, evolving and advancing the 988 crisis care continuum work. And we're just real happy to be able to support and do our part at HP. So thank you. Back over to
Thank you.
you.
Thank you so much, Mary. Thank you for your leadership, your partnership, and support. And we'll look forward to these workforce segments as well as seeing you and members of your team in other components of the Crisis Jam as we move forward.
Yeah.
So we've been doing news segments for years, but we've tended to hit a lot of news items too quickly. And so in season six, we're going to, as we did with Dr. Ursula Whiteside and AI last week, we're going to focus a little bit more on an ongoing news item. We did AI and ChatGPT in particular and suicidal teens, which has been such a powerful news item. Today, Kristen Ellis and I were having a meeting with Stephen Parker. Stephen, are you with us? Stephen. Stephen may not be with us yet. So I'll set this up and we'll see if Stephen comes on. But we saw this screenshot on his background in a meeting we were having. Stephen is part of an architectural firm, Stantec, that we met at the NASBID meeting. And this is a recovery center that is in northern Canada on a archipelago adjacent to Greenland. So we've been doing these visits to amazing crisis facilities. We were in Salt Lake City, we were in Columbus, Ohio, and this Arctic area recovery center that Stantec is helping support, well, we're going to hear more about. So if Stephen's not able to join us today, we'll look to see if we can't get him on at another time. I'll just show you the slides. That's Stephen in an interview he did recently. And this is how you fly from Ontario to Nunavut, which is in the Arctic area. This is the city of Iqaluit, I believe. And that is the $80 million crisis recovery center with 40 beds serving that 40,000 population there. So Stephen, I guess not able to join. There you are, Stephen.
Took a while.
No, glad you're here. So tell us a little bit about this amazing facility and getting to, is it Nunavut?
None of it, yeah, depending on how Canadian your accent might be versus your American one.
So, Stephen, we met you with some amazing work you're doing with Crisis, actually with both Columbus and Salt Lake City. But tell us about the facility that is in the Inuit-led community.
Yeah, so Iqaluit, the territorial capital of Nunavut, so that's a territory of Canada. So think of like the opposite side from Alaska, so more facing kind of Greenland. It's a territory of only 40,000 people, and it is run by the Inuit communities. And the facility is kind of a unique generational trauma and addiction facility in the sense that instead of taking an individual out of a toxic environment to send them on the road to recovery, they take entire family units into generational trauma treatment. So this becomes a space for them to have both inpatient family suites. So they're set up for different cohorts throughout the year. And that's kind of unique that you take mom, dad, aunt, uncle, kids all into one setting to kind of navigate what have been really trying times for generations of their people. So we've had the great privilege of working on this, and we'll actually be presenting it at the American Indian Society for Engineers and Scientists next week in Minneapolis.
So, Stephen, this is an exciting project that we want to hear more about. And actually, we're going to engage you in our upcoming episode in 3 weeks, Big Feelings in the Real World. So we wanted to introduce you to Stephen and some of his amazing work. We're going to see more of this as we go forward. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And maybe you can drop into the chat your LinkedIn, and which has this picture as well as some of the story about that.
Will do.
So that brings us to our hot seat Q&A and our Crisis Jam shop, which you get a gift card that allows you to access the shop directly. And I think we have someone who is going to sport for us one of those products. Who do we have with us here, Kristen, today?
We have Mr. 7-month-old Malachi, who's the first owner of AT.
And
This is one of them.
Malachi, which tee are you wearing? That's
This is the Crisis Jam Drips shirt, if he would sit still.
Yeah, I see that. And that's actually the first one that comes up on this. If I can bring, there it is, Crisis Jam Drip. Malachi, thank you for being with us, and thanks for sporting that shirt. So if you sit in the Crisis Jam hot seat, then you get a chance for that. So today's question, inspired by our Fireside Chat guest, Dr. Thomas Joyner, in his 2025 paper, The Descent of Agamemnon and the Disquietude of Job, Dr. Joyner drew on myth and scripture to explore the roots of suicide. According to this analysis, which of these most centrally spurs despair? Welcome, Dr. John Draper and Joy Brunson and Subiga, to the Crisis Trivia Duo Hot Seat. This is our new season 6 approach. Now, in the green room, John and Joy, no one got it right except for Dr. Joyner. Dr. Joyner said, that's a super hard question. And I said, that whole purpose is to stump John Draper and Joy Brunson and Subiga. So let me bring up the answers.
Okay.
Uh-oh. I got to make sure we can hear our background sound. I guess we don't hear the background sound with the poll up. Too bad. Unbearable suffering, A. Hopelessness about the future, loss of agency or powerlessness, or social isolation and disconnection. Talk it through, guys.
Well, Joy, you start. Tell me what your thoughts are.
I start. So I was thinking through kind of the different pieces that he kind of laid out in the Mesos film. And that social isolation and disconnection was one that he talked about. So that's where I was thinking.
And that's where the audience is. 50% of the audience right now is with you on D, followed by B, then C, and then last A. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm because there's something about that that just seems so thematically on the nose for this particular presentation. I think that Thomas is going to be talking about belonging today, that I think it couldn't be right. So
So,
I'm thinking, and of course one would think with the disquietude of Job, there'd be unbearable suffering, and hopelessness about the future is always a big factor that Thomas and many suicidologists note. But one of the things that we don't talk enough about that I believe that Thomas is also focused on, and I believe is in this paper, is loss of agency and powerlessness. There's nothing I can do to stop what is this incredible pain that I'm feeling.
yeah.
It certainly has something about hopelessness, but it's about helplessness and hopelessness.
And Job, certainly more familiar with the story of Job, but Agamemnon from the Odyssey, the Legend of Troy.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's it. Loss of agency and powerlessness. Thomas, say a word or two about that.
Well, John comes through again. That's a really hard question, really hard. But yeah, I think all these things are relevant, are very relevant. But that particular paper really focuses in on just the feeling of the loss of agency to the degree that one even feels subjectively dead. That's how severe and how serious and how painful it can get. So, yep, John nailed it.
Yeah, good. Well, if you think that
The
was
time has
hard,
come for this. Nom, nom, nom.
if you think that one was hard, it's time for our Cookie Monster. It cut the cookie. It's the over under. John, this one's 10 times harder. I still don't understand it myself. But Thomas and I were having this discussion. That had to be 15 years ago, Thomas, where I was reflecting on these two core intrapsychic challenges he talks about in the interpersonal model of burdensomeness and belongingness. And I said something like, well, Thomas, don't these like also go together? I mean, I make a connection
Yeah.
and then I make my contribution in the context of those people, right? And he just that quick said they overlap to this percentage. So I'll give you a little bit more. This is a picture from Kim Van Orden, and she's in her lab. They focus on older adults in Rochester, but grew up in the lab of Thomas Joyner and the interpersonal model. The coefficient for the relationship tends to be positive, around 0.6. So the shared overlap is what percentage? Uh, John, you say a percentage, and Joy will say over or under.
Mm. I'm going to say, I mean, I think a distinguishing factor with burdensomeness is you may belong, but you belong in a way that burdens people. So that may distinguish it in some respects from belongingness. But you're right, David, they do have some overlap. But I'm going to say 40%.
40%. Okay, so like Richard, John has cut it really tight here, Joy. Over or under? This is a hard one.
Goodness.
And
Um,
audience, jump in. Over or under?
can I phone a friend?
You can phone anyone but Thomas Joyner.
I was hoping for that one.
The
Um,
audience is saying over,
and
Joy.
it's saying
So
over. Well, they also agreed with me on the last one, and
they
we
did.
all had it wrong.
They
So
did. They did.
maybe under.
Under. It is under. The answer, belongings and burdenness, they travel together. Shared. And Thomas, the actual research is shared variance, shared covariance. What's the actual language here?
Shared variance, yeah, and it's just the square of that coefficient. So 0.60 times itself is 0.36. And it's the degree to which they, yeah, so goes one as goes the other kind of thing. Overlap more or less captures it.
So the scientists in the room said the answer is right there on the screen, and the rest of us got it wrong. So that's why Thomas is here. And that is our lead story, guys, of a fireside chat with Dr. Thomas Joyner, who's done so great work of bringing research and the heart and human experience together. Rachel, who has been such a great partner from Crisis Now 3 in Amsterdam last year to the work she's done with Crisis Jam. Rachel, welcome and lead us on a fireside chat with Thomas, if you will.
Thank you so much, David. I just want to say thank you, first of all, for having me here. It's such an honor to get to talk to you, Thomas, and just to be in this space. Just for a little context for people who are joining us today, I first met Thomas in 2023 at the Salt Lake City premiere of Moving America's Soul on Suicide. I was invited as a speaker to talk about my own experience with suicidality, and I didn't know Thomas was going to be there, and I was like, David, is that Thomas Joyner? And he was like, yes, it is. And I was really flabbergasted because I had read Why People Die by Suicide in school, and it radically transformed how I conceptualized suicide and suicidality, and not only from like a psychological therapeutic lens, but on an individual level. And it gave me a framework from which to really move down a path of recovery in a way that I hadn't moved before. So I want to thank you, first of all, for your brilliant mind and the way you think about things in the world and humans. And I have a lot of questions. I know we are limited on time, but one thing that I have noticed in the last few years is, I think in this concept of belongingness, I started to really use that as a methodology when it came to how to counteract my feelings of loneliness or my depression. And I sought out connection really, really intentionally as an antidote. And something that I have found along the way is sort of that trope of like you can be in a room full of people and still feel alone, is that connection is not just about surrounding yourself with people. It's about understanding, like deep understanding and being understood and being seen. And that requires a lot of vulnerability. And what I've noticed is that there is this sort of interesting, John Draper kind of mentioned it, like there's, you can belong in a way that's burdensome. There's this sort of teeter-totter of, in order to be that vulnerable to some capacity, there is the potential that I become a burden. And so I'm wondering if you can kind of talk about that interplay.
Well, first of all, Rachel, I appreciate your kind remarks about my books and my work. That has been the point. Understanding really has been the bottom line. Everybody, let's try to understand this better. Whether you're a mental health professional, whether you're a scholar, whether you're a scientist, whether you're someone who's been bereaved in your family, whether you're someone, you yourself has been through a crisis or crises, understanding is the point, so that compassion can follow and kindness can follow, as well as better treatment and better prevention and better understanding from clinicians. Yes, as for belonging and the complicated interplay, not terribly complicated, but it can get complicated between belonging and burdensomeness. What I say to psychotherapy patients is just show up and not only that, but take some risks. It'll feel vulnerable, as you said, Rachel. That's right, but it's worth it. We're so deeply social as creatures. Our very nature is gregarious. Evolutionarily speaking, that's true, and it's true to this day. We need each other, and so it's like water and food. It's worth the risk because you need it to survive. And that's how important I view social connection is. It's on the same par as something like water or oxygen or food. That's how essential it is to our existence.
Yeah, I fully agree. And it makes me think a little bit about sort of like you talk about like thwarted belongingness, and I'm thinking a little bit about like rejection and these sort of two like simultaneous experiences of not belonging, but for different reasons, whether it's sort of this root feeling from a young age of, I don't fit in anywhere, I don't belong. And it's sort of stemming from that sort of initial place versus the experience of having belonging and then that being taken away. And I'm wondering if in your research there's been a difference between those two and how they show up for folks.
They land in the same place. So in terms of feeling lonely and rejected and left out, etc. But the routes can be different, and the different routes to that same place can be relevant clinically. It can be relevant in understanding someone and where they're where they're coming from. But again, any social connection is so vital. There are a lot of different routes to feeling disconnected, but that's the bad news. The good news is the flip side of that. We are so gregarious that we as humans have a lot of different routes to connection. It's in us. In our cells and in our souls, and we just need to let it give it a chance to 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 thrive and to come out.
Yeah. So why do you think, and I don't know if this is something that you can speak from just on a like a personal note versus things that you've studied, but why do you think we struggle so hard as humans to connect?
I don't know that we always have. I think there was a time ancestrally where it just kind of came naturally. It was literally a matter of life and death that you were socially connected. And then, with all the modern advances that we've had, which are great, I use them, everyone uses them, I've benefited from them, so has everyone in society, but they do have a little bit of a dark side and it can be alienating.
Mhm.
And I think that's only getting more and more true with time. And so you mentioned being very intentional, Rachel, about connecting. And I think that's more important than ever because there's all sorts of distractions from connection that are available to us. And so being very intentional, being very focused on it is to the good. And I think that's a great way of living, honestly.
I think you're right. I think just with our modern day and age, there are a lot of, I mean, there's both challenges and benefits of, just being in a digital world and the advent of social media. And as someone who uses social media a lot in my own work, I've noticed how, especially like since COVID, when people started really getting online a lot more and using social media, and talking a lot more about mental health, how much there has been a push for destigmatizing and talking more openly about personal experiences, whether it's with suicide or mental illness. And I've noticed for myself that has made me feel less alone. It has increased my sense of belonging, and reduced that sense of being a burden because I can share my story openly without that fear as much as I used to. And so I know that there is a lot of benefit with that when it comes to stigma, and especially like we see with the Massos film when it comes to like sharing stories, it really does have a huge impact. But I'm curious what your thoughts are about social media, especially as we like, I mean, it is just exponential how much we are seeing people using social media and being attached to their phones, and using that as a vehicle for connection.
I think it can be certainly a vehicle for healthy connection. There's no question to that. And at the same time, there's very little question in my mind that it can be overdone.
Mhm.
Um, and I did want to remark on your comments about this generation, this time, the mental health fluency that we're seeing in society. I think it's at an all-time high. The mental health literacy, the openness that people have talking about it. We still got a ways to go, don't get me wrong, but it's better than it's ever been before. And I think that's a really exciting opportunity for society to really, make an incremental improvement in our understanding and our treatment and our compassion for suffering of this kind. It's a very exciting moment. I just hope we're able to all together, capitalize on this moment.
Yeah, I agree. And I appreciate you saying that because I know that there's a lot of mixed feelings about social media. And there's also, it's really complicated when we think about the fact that anybody can say anything. And so there's also a lot of misinformation. And so, being able to navigate that, and help folks increase their literacy as consumers, so they can kind of filter through, fact and fiction, as they use these as both tools for communication or for connection and education. So, okay, I have one last question. I know we're getting close on time here. So, this is such an important topic, and I also know that it's really, really difficult. And I'm so impressed and inspired by your endurance in this field and in this space. And I'm wondering if you can share what is it that keeps you going? How do you maintain that endurance?
Yeah, endurance in the face of a topic that is there's no way around it. It's painful and tragic and all, it really is. However, to me, if you feel like you're making a difference, even an incremental difference day by day in the positive direction, that's all I need to keep going. And so that's one thing. And then the people I have around me are amazing. My PhD students, both current and former, they're incredible, and so they're inspiring, and they certainly keep me going, and I keep them going, and so we have a great team. Are really we work together very well. So it's those things. It's the people involved, and it's not just my group. There's lots of groups around the country like this. We really are at a moment where we can capitalize, given the fluency of society, the personnel that's in this field like never before. It's encouraging. I mean, there are some reasons not to be encouraged. The American suicide rate hasn't budged in many, many, many years. That's not good. However, the world rate has decreased incredibly over the last few decades by 250,000 deaths per year saved as compared to 30 years ago. So there's all sorts of reasons for optimism, and we need to get better. And the way that I keep going over the course of decades now is getting a little bit of a more of a contribution each and every day, even if it's very, very minor, and then connecting to great people.
Mm. Thank you so much, Thomas. I really appreciate you being here and speaking with me. I'm very grateful for all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, and great to see everybody.
Thank you so much, Rachel. We'll take one question from the audience. Thomas, I know you wrote a book about this, but Lance Foster is asking, please speak to the junction of men connecting with others and their high rates of suicide.
Right. The book I wrote is called Lonely at the Top. Um, I wanted to call it The Lonely Sex, but the publisher thought for some reason that wasn't good. I regret not standing my ground on that. Lonely at the Top is a worse title than The Lonely Sex, but that's what the title is. And basically, it's about loneliness in men and why men are a little bit more prone as they age to loneliness. And sure enough, that's true. There's evidence to it. And also, and it's not a coincidence, I argue in that book, that older men are the highest in terms of demographics, in terms of their death by suicide. They're the most lethal group. They die at rates that far exceed other demographic groups. And I think that increasing loneliness and that increasing suicide rate as men get older and older and older, those two things correlate. They go together with one another for a reason. The one is causing the other, in part at least. So that was the argument of that book. But then everything that Rachel and I have been talking about just now about connection is the antidote to that for people. It doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter what gender you are or anything. People need connection just as people need hydration and nutrition and oxygen.
Well, this community has been very much that for me and many others. And thank you so much. If both of you will stay here, we're going to go into our roundtable segment that we have a couple of amazing leaders in. Past president of American Association of Suicidology, actually a past president of the University of Memphis, where I got my counseling degree, and had a terrific debate at AAS a few years ago. Dr. David Rudd has done such amazing work. Dr. Rudd, are you welcome? Thanks for being here. Your reflections on the Fireside Chat, Dr. Rudd.
Yeah, David, thank you. And I really appreciate the kind comments. First, I would say one to Thomas, thank you for your brilliant work. It really is remarkable and has changed countless lives. And being a treatment researcher, let me just make a couple of comments about the translation of this in treatment and kind of what we've looked at and what we have found tied to Thomas's thoughts. One, what makes people uniquely human is that we make meaning, and we make meaning of our experiences, and we make meaning of every experience, both at a conscious and unconscious level. And I would say that meaning for, if you look at suicide risk, that I agree entirely with what Thomas said and what we have found. And if you look at treatments that actually work, so if we actually look at this scientifically, and we distill down and think about what works and what does not work, the one common thread about treatments that are actually effective are treatments that deal with meaning around identity and agency. And identity in many forms, and one of those being burdensomeness, defectiveness, the sense of failure, loathsomeness, similar kind of identity themes. And then around agency, it really is around two themes. The idea of unbearability, so the notion of I can't stand the way that I feel, I can't manage the way that I feel, and then unsolvability. I can't solve my problems. And so if you look at effective treatments, that's what effective treatments do, is they deal with those two things thematically around meaning. And what they target is the bias that individuals struggling with suicidality have, an inherent bias given their own experiences around processing information, changing that information, processing accurate understanding of their own sense of identity and agency, and then improving access to change in terms of how they deal with the changing sense of identity and agency over time. So I think Thomas's work is perfectly reflected that, and you'll see it integrated into, realistically, there are about 6 or 7 interventions that are effective for changing behavior around suicide and having an impact on individual experience. And so I think this was a fabulous discussion of that, and really applaud the work that Thomas has done.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rudd. We had David Jobs on the Crisis Jam a couple of seasons ago. Very popular episode talking about some of those treatments. Would be great to have you on in a future episode, Dr. Rudd.
Yeah, we'd love to do it. And I really appreciate your work, David, and the attention and visibility that you brought to this critical issue. Thank you.
Oh, and we're so thankful for this whole community and our partners. And another amazing partner, Craig Miller, of course, was in our Moving America's Soul on Suicide documentary, but also in the S Word, wrote a book, This Is How It Feels, and another inspiring mentor and friend. Craig, thanks for spending some time with us. Your reflections on this fireside chat with Rachel and Thomas.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I think for me, the thing that stood out more than anything was all the talk about connection. I can identify with that a lot. I think one of the things that I think I can identify with most about it is, especially right now, I mean, the divide we see in the world, no matter what you're into, there's two sides. It doesn't matter. And it's growing more and more. But behind that, at the foundation of it, we all identify with the feeling that's behind it. You can be angry about something that's going on over here, and the people over here can be angry about that. But the common thread is anger. And that common theme is a feeling we identify with. And I think if we can all get to a point, especially like when I have discussions, if I'm going through a struggle and I talk with somebody, if we can identify that feeling and someone knows how I feel, regardless of what's behind it, regardless of the story, regardless of their perspective on things, it doesn't matter. You know that feeling with me, and you can sit with me with that feeling, and we can talk through that feeling. That's part of the human experience. To me, that's that real connection that we can develop with someone. And it isn't our opinions, it isn't anything that goes, or our experiences even. It's the feeling we can identify with and connect on. To me, that's critical, because that just breaks down the boundaries of everything that could potentially stand in the way of drawing connection.
Thanks so much, Craig. Thanks for spending the time with us, and all the heart and soul you've poured into this work. Appreciate you very much. Rachel, we got a minute or so. Your reflections on this dialogue with Thomas and the episode today. What are you thinking, feeling? Any reflections you have?
I think, I every time I talk to anybody about this subject, I learn something new. And I think that it just reminds me how nuanced and gray this is. It is not black and white. It's not I want to be alive or I don't. It is just, and I just am always touched by the care and the compassion in these conversations. It makes me want to stay alive. Like it just adds to my list of reasons to stay. I think something that really stood out to me was something that Thomas said earlier. I think it was when we did the trivia, and this feeling of I can't remember exactly how you said it, but it's like I'm already dead even though I'm still alive. I can't remember the exact phraseology you used, and that's going to sit with me for a while because I felt that before. That feeling of it's as if I'm already dead, and so you've given me something to kind of noodle on. Yeah, it's a concept that's going to stick with me.
I love that. Rachel, that actually sparks a memory for me. It's been, oh gosh, at least 10, 12, 15 years ago. I was part of an effort, the Zero Suicide Healthcare effort. We were trying to get suicide attempt survivor support groups as part of the system here in Phoenix. And I couldn't convince some medical leadership to go along with that. So I brought in Richard and Thomas, and we had a meeting together. And Thomas and I had worked out some talking points, and they had to do with this is not a new concept. DBT groups talk about suicide every day across the United States. And Thomas just went completely off script. And I'm like trying to kick him under the table. And he said, the only thing that has been demonstrated to show a real impact with suicide. And I thought he was going to say something along what Dr. Rudd said recently, about the interventions. But he said it's caring. It's caring. And what would be more caring than people coming together to support one another? So, Thomas, what an amazing this tenacity and endurance that Rachel was talking about, this caring that you've demonstrated throughout. Thank you so much, Thomas, my friend, our leader and pioneer in this work. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, David. Thank you for all that you do for the field.
And that brings us great.
What you've done for me too, I should add. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Thomas. I asked Thomas if he would be the medical clinical advisor for our film, and he said, David, I'll do anything you want on this film. And that's how he became my co-producer on it. So what a great segue to Richard McKeon. King Richard. I thought John was not going to be able to match your performance in the trivia hot seat last week, but pretty strong from John and great hearing from Thomas. Richard, the SAMHSA update today.
Thank you so much, David. Glad to be here. And I think that this is an appropriate time to really acknowledge a really important part of the Lifeline and 988 journey that has taken place. Okay, so and so what I wanted to kind of take note of is that Thomas was the first chair of the Lifeline Standards Training and Practices Committee. And it was this group that took the groundbreaking evaluation work of Madeline Gould, John Califat, and Brian Mishara, and turned it into the standards for suicide risk assessment and the guidelines for callers at imminent risk that have had such a huge impact and are the core components of the current 988 safety policy. And, within that same vein of the importance of these groups that have advised the Lifeline over time, including the Consumer Survivor Group that was chaired by Eduardo Vega. But I also wanted to acknowledge that the current Standards Training and Practices Chair is David Rudd. So it's wonderful to see, kind of the entire history of that important group and that important translation of evaluation into practice represented on today's Crisis Jam. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't note also that you, David, are a past co-chair of the Lifeline Steering Committee, which you did a number of years with Mike Hogan. And those committees are still working, and in fact met up in New York City last week, and had some great additional input and conversation. And I only have one additional note, because I noted in the chat before, someone noted that the SAMHSA's national guidelines for crisis care were down off the website. That is accurate, but we anticipate them being back up shortly. There was just some brief updating that's going on. So you can look forward to finding them again shortly. And we'll try to let you know on the jam when they're back up. So thank you very much for the opportunity to join you all in the briefing room.
Thank you so much, Richard. And that brings us to the NASBID update from the states. And today we have the Director of Mental Health Commissioner for North Carolina, Kelly Crosby. Kelly, welcome, and thanks for being on the Crisis Jam. Tell us about some of the work you're doing with 988 and crisis care in North Carolina.
Yeah, hi. I was just here a little while ago, and I gave a really big overview about some investments that we got from our General Assembly to invest in our crisis system in North Carolina. And today I was just dropping by for a few quick minutes because we recently, probably like most of you on 988 Day, had a celebration, but we used ours to really highlight our ASL services. So, and for us, and so you'll see actually that's us at a conference room at our actual real crisis center. We had obviously our own consultant, Dara. You may have met her. She leads our deaf and hard of hearing services here at the division. But we also had our partners from our division of deaf and hard of hearing services. And so we celebrated 988. It's really going strong in North Carolina. 11,500 people use it every month. Adolescents 13 to 18 are actually the group that use it the most, but we used it as an opportunity to also highlight the ASL line. So on the next slide, you probably have, yes, on the next slide is really what I wanted to show you. So that is actually, we worked with our division of deaf and hard of hearing services to create a PSAs. So we actually have YouTube videos and other PSAs for the deaf and hard of hearing community, so they know about the video options through 988, how they can access those, and actually they demo what they look like. So we've had really good uptake, and we really appreciate the partnership. So yeah, so that's what we just wanted to highlight today. There's probably a link in the slides to some of our PSAs and our videos. We're super, super proud of those. And we're proud of our collaboration with our Deaf and Hard of Hearing division, and proud of the work that our homegrown Real Crisis Center, the services they provide in North Carolina. That's
Kelly,
it.
we actually have time to show that the 3-minute video if you'd like to share it with the community.
I would love. Do you guys have the link? I can pull it up. It'll just take me a sec.
I'm just gonna play it right here.
You can play it. Woo! Good. It's better if you do it than I do it.
The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline offers services for people across North Carolina who are deaf, hard of hearing, and deaf-blind. If you are struggling, you can call directly through voice, video phone, text, or chat online with the 988 Lifeline. There are caring counselors available anytime to listen and support you without judgment.
I need help, I'm feeling depressed, and I'm struggling.
I can help you.
Thank you.
Of course, I'm here for you anytime. You can reach out to the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline video phone by calling 988 directly with your video phone device or carrier. 988 provides confidential and free support through ASL crisis counselors anytime. 988 is accessible to all North Carolinians, including deaf, hard of hearing, and deaf-blind individuals through chat anytime by going to chat.988lifeline.org. You will be asked your zip code and a few questions about how you are feeling. Then, you can start your chat with a caring 988 counselor. You can text with a 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline counselor anytime by sending a message to 988 to start a conversation. TTY users can reach a 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline counselor through their preferred relay service or dial 711, then 988 anytime.
No matter your struggle, like thoughts of self-harm or depression, you are not alone. Call, text, or chat 988 anytime.
So, Kelly, wow, terrific work. And that's the essence of this community is states and other groups bringing what they're doing to this community so that others can extrapolate. Kelly was named North Carolina Social Worker of the Year this year. So, Kelly, great work. Megan, you have a quick comment on this terrific work that North Carolina is doing in the space of deaf and hard of hearing?
I do. And David, you know I would, because Kelly, you're doing incredible work, and making ASL video services mainstream in the sense that it's a norm is so important. We hope that the deaf community reaches out to 988. North Carolina is doing a fantastic job. And Dara Burrell, who is the state coordinator for deaf mental health services in North Carolina, has been a great leader. We so appreciate her input. We gather together as state coordinators, and she's a big part of that. And so just thank you for your leadership, Kelly, and bringing this forth and recognizing the need and fulfilling that need. And, just your continuous leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan, and thank you for lifting up Dara. She's wonderful. And we are very privileged to have her, as well as our partnership with our Division of Deaf and Hard of Hearing. And we've got a really strong advisory council at the state as well. And so they're always really urging us on, as they should be, just to do more to make sure that we're reaching more people. And I think one of the things that's been really interesting about this video is it's not just the deaf and hard of hearing community that have been interested, like everyone's been interested in the video, because it actually gives you a little bit of an experience of what a deaf and hard of hearing person would experience when they call 988. And like, we don't know what that is. And we kind of imagine it, but not quite. And so it's just been actually a really good learning opportunity just for everyone, these videos. So super proud of the team. This is all the team that did it.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Kelly and Megan. So Capitol Watch, I want to acknowledge as we start season 6, Audrey Wheeler is going to be working with Emily Feltran. Huge thanks to Sarah Corcoran, who's been such a regular, and we'll get Sarah back in the program as well, but Audrey's going to be doing Capitol Watch this year. Audrey, welcome, and tell us what's going on at the federal level.
Thanks, David. Hey, everyone. It's good to see all of these wonderful faces again and be back on the jam from last week. I'm sure everyone has been hearing the rumblings around federal funding and potential government shutdowns, so I want to try to add some framework to those rumors and explain a little bit about what we're seeing around Capitol Hill and tie it all up to say what all of it means for 988 and crisis care funding. As of now, we have the text and committee report language for the fiscal year 2026 Labor, Health, and Human Services appropriations bills for both the House and Senate. That's just a fancy way of saying these bills are the proposed federal funding for a variety of government agencies and programs running from the fiscal year that extends this upcoming October 2025 through September 2026. These bills indicate what Congress is prioritizing when it comes to social services, health programs, workforce development, and really any of these other initiatives that are core to the crisis care continuum. On the overhead, we are seeing a total cut to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration that's about in the range of $300 million. But 988 funding itself was spared from any of the proposed reductions that are being seen across the entire federal spectrum. While both the House and Senate versions of the appropriations bill support continued federal funding for the 988 Lifeline, the House bill was a proposal for maintaining level funding at $519 million for the year. And the Senate bill actually includes a little bit of a nice increase that brought their proposal to $534 million. One of the key differences around 988 between the two bill texts is around the designated LGBTQ plus hotline funding. As you all know and are familiar with, this past July, the Trump administration unfortunately decided to eliminate the Press 3 option for LGBTQ plus youth specialized services within the 988 Lifeline network. The House Appropriations Bill still reflects this elimination and does not include designated funding for the LGBTQ plus line, but the Senate version surprisingly restores $33 million for these services and further goes to direct SAMHSA to follow through on re-implementing the youth line. The Senate support for youth in distress has been reflected in a separate bill recently introduced by Senator Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. These two senators are currently seeking to codify the youth option into law so that its core existence cannot be easily changed by any administration. One last key difference between the House and Senate appropriations bills is around a little bit of conflicting messaging on the 988 IT options. The Senate bill is a little vague on the details of 988 technology options, but the House bill directly specifies that we can have individual states and individual counties using their own IT platforms and technology. I do want to remind everyone that everything I'm saying today, all of these funding numbers are committee proposals, and they can and will change as the two chambers of Congress negotiate a final spending bill for FY26. Right now, we are just under a week away from the September 30th funding deadline, and I can say it's not looking like we're going to have all 12 necessary appropriations bills wrapped up and signed into law by next Tuesday. I'll tentatively say it's becoming more and more likely that we're heading towards a government shutdown. And it's likely we're going to be seeing a few rounds of continuing resolutions to extend short-term stopgap funding rather than getting to see Congress pass a full package to carry us all the way through September 2026. That being said, please don't make any bets based on the analysis I'm giving you today. I always think trying to predict the actions of Congress is maybe a little bit more accurate than shaking a magic 8-ball. So we could see negotiations changing very quickly and entirely over the course of the next week. Thanks again for having me today on Capitol Watch, and I hope everyone enjoys the remainder of your week as we count down to the September 30th funding deadline.
Thank you so much, Audrey. Welcome to the Crisis Jam community. And thanks so much to Miriam and AHP for being our new partners, for Thomas Joyner and Rachel for an amazing fireside chat. Kristen, take us home today.
Thanks, David. And thank you so much to Dr. Thomas Joyner and Rachel Havekost for today's incredible fireside chat, and to all of you for keeping the Crisis Jam community strong week after week. Next week, we have Dr. Jack Rosell, who's going to join us to talk about safety and assessment and the importance of doing that well to engage connection. The 2 weeks out, we're going to have Dr. John Torres exploring mental health apps and 988. And in 3 weeks, we are going to have a really special segment called Big Feelings in the Real World with Kim Sanders, Matthew Holtzclaw, talking a little bit about UCARO. And the moderator is going to be Dr. Chuck Browning. We're really excited for this one, partially because we actually have a tea that matches it pretty well. So if you like it, you can get a tea that matches, as well as just the full conversation about dignity and respect in crisis facilities, treating people with care that feels like care, because that's going to ensure that we have better outcomes for our community, right? So season 6 is our most dynamic yet. We're really excited for all the things that are still yet to come. So please tune in, log on, and join the movement, and we will see you next week.